And so today we're going to do a mindfulness meditation activity. But before we get going, I just kind of want to check in with everyone. Has anyone here like ever meditated or done mindfulness or yoga or anything like that before? Let me just get like a raised hand just so I can see. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so a few of you do have some experience with this. Perfect. And so this is going to be like, what we're going to do is very simple and very accessible. And if you have never done this before, all good. If you feel like you are a pro, also I think that you'll get something out of this. So either way. Great. Okay, so what we're going to do is called a mindful eating exercise. So wherever you're at right now, if you're eating, just kind of like take your last bite or finish chewing whatever you're doing, and then wipe your hands off, do whatever you got to do, and just stop for a moment. Yeah, and if you're not eating for whatever reason, you can just kind of like follow along and yeah. Cool. Okay. So the purpose of this activity is that all of us eat, right? Something that we all do. I can pretty much count on everyone in this room eating. And so, but it's rare. It's rare that we are really paying attention to this process or the experience of eating. Usually we're just kind of watching TV, maybe talking to someone, maybe just kind of just like shoveling in our mouth. It's just kind of the way that most of us engage in eating. So what we're going to do now is we're going to slow down this process a little bit, this process of eating a little bit. And so the first thing that we're going to do is simply, and we're going to engage our senses, like our 5 senses. So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of like look at the food. Right? So everyone just look at your food for a second without eating it, without tasting it. Just look at it. And so notice for a moment and let me just say before we get going that this practice can be super challenging. It's super challenging for me. If you hate it, if you're just getting annoyed, just eat. I'm serious. If you feel like you hate this, just go for it. But do your best to follow along with me. So take a moment to look at the food, and just kind of notice the colors, the visual texture of it. Notice how the light reflects off the food. Just looking at it. Yeah. And just take a moment. We won't do this for too long. And just kind of like allow your eyes to take in, to absorb this visual of the food. And do your best to breathe calmly and naturally. Okay, so now we are going to engage the smell, right? The olfactory sense, right? So you can take your plate of food and just bring it up to your nose. And you don't have to like sniff hard necessarily, just take it in. Again, just like we did with the seeing, absorb the scent of the food. Does anyone want to share their experience with that practice? Tell me your name. Jasmine.
So usually when I'm eating, I know it's like I don't enjoy stuff. Like I'll watch people eat. I'm like, how do they eat so slow? Like I just like just eating it and I don't take the time. Like I guess it felt good. Like I have more food left when I took my time.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, but you were saying like it was like a interesting and like maybe even like enjoyable experience to slow down a little bit. Yeah, and like you notice other people eating slowly, but like you usually find that you like eat more quickly. Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. Anyone else want to share?
This is the first time I really enjoyed my food. I'm usually a shoveler.
Yeah.
I have to get from one place to another, and I don't have time to sit down and eat. and my next class is on the other side of campus.
Yeah.
So I never have time to eat, and with a toddler, I never have time to eat either.
Right.
So this is really nice. Like, I actually enjoyed the taste, and like when you were talking, I can feel the different flavors in my mouth. It was really awesome to just focus on that for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like both of you, tell me your name.
Miss Saba.
Miss Saba. Miss Saba and Jasmine both kind of like shared like a similar experience of like having this tendency to like eat quickly. And I would say that that is like a super common, I mean, I've done this exercise a lot, been like led by other teachers and like done it with other people. And so many of us have that same habit of just like eating very quickly and not really like paying very much attention to what we're doing. Also, a lot of us have like this tendency to like watch TV or like text while we're eating or just like engage in so many other activities. Sometimes activities that we have to engage in, like Miss Saba has like a child who like obviously she has to pay attention to. Yeah. Anyone else want to share anything about their experience? Yeah.
I noticed like the temperature of the food more, you know, because I was eating broccoli and I was like, oh, this is kind of cold.
Yeah.
Normally I would like just going down.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, did you want?
I was just noticing the subtleties of flavor, like as you took a bite and a little grain of salt, you know, or like a little, you know,
Yeah.
some spice that just came into, you know, consciousness, you know what I mean? Like it was just being conscious of the flavors,
For sure.
different flavors as you chew.
Yeah. And tell me your name?
Chris, Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright. Cool, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think like what Mr. Wright was sharing, that being conscious of like the complexity of this food and like how interesting that is and like sort of like invigorating maybe. I think that that's like the real benefit of like working with a practice like this or any other kind of mindfulness practice, that we start to be present with and show up to like our lives. Which is, you know, when we're eating, it kind of is like, seems like a small thing, like to show up to like the process of eating. But if like you think about it on like a larger scale, like this is our one life to live. Like each moment that we live, like you can't get that moment back. And I just think it's so important that we spend that time like as wisely as possible and like reap from each of those moments like as much as we can, absorb, right? Because like that's what we're kind of doing when we're conscious of like our food. We're absorbing that experience. And when we're conscious of our lives, we're absorbing like our lives as much as possible. And I think that like this is the key to like living fully. Yeah, and I think that that's like the real, as important as it is to like develop healthy eating habits and like be healthy. I think like the most, which is super important, but like the real power of this practice is that it like shows us how to live more fully. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.